Hello everybody, welcome to another video on the channel, and this one is going to be a bit different than walkthrough videos and whatnot that you have seen here in the past. Today I will be going over the first of many raid rules that I hope kind of make videos on to familiarize people with the three different raids that currently exist in the game, and then some of the strats that are used for them, and then how to do those to best prepare you if you do raid yourself or you kind of just want to see what it looks like. Today I'm going to be starting with raid role that I tend to do quite often on my main character, my death, and that is the role of the Fyth to the Crying Sky raid. The strat that we use, and it will be linked below, is the strat created by the guild Dauntless Troupe. I'm in that guild as well. And if you are familiar with some older strats, is very similar to the Dauntless Ducks or the Deep strat. So in this video, I'm going to be going over the kind of stat gear requirements, and going step by step through a actual run of the Crying Sky Raid that I did over the weekend, to explain kind of what you're supposed to do, what you do in each situation, and kind of talk you through the raid so that you can guys yourself with it. So first, before we look at the raid or anything like that, I am going to kind of go over just what the gear requirements are. Gear in this raid is kind of funky, especially for this role. It does require a bit of an odd setup, and I'll kind of explain as I go through the gear requirements and the cards why you must have everything, why everything that's in the guide is kind of. So this is specifically part of the slide within the guide. It's on slide 7, the Fyth to deck requirement in the gear setup. So it is labeled as Fyth 2, but it can be done by a Sith or Storm cosplaying myth, a Death cosplaying myth, or a Fyth Fire cosplaying myth. Most commonly, you will be seeing it end up being a fire. Storms aren't as common just because you already need 4 storms for the actual storm specific rules in the raid. But this can be done by a Fyth or a Diff. Fyth is usually preferable, just because of damage output, but a Diff does work just as fine. You might just need to back up hit every now and then. Specifically, the only role that Diff can do where it actually serves as a hitter rather than a Jade is the Fyth 2 role. As you can see, it is the allowed schools are Fire, Death, Storm. So for this role, and it is a bit different. If you're a Fyth or a Sith, you need to have all of the required stats set at show. You need at least 195 myth damage, 25 myth accuracy, 65 myth pierce, max power pip chance, and myth mastery. The most common mastery amulets, and I'll show you kind of how I set it up on my death, is going to likely be the Omen mastery amulets that you get from the Omen Streebog boss in Polaris. But you can also use other mastery amulets, such as the one crafted in Furia or from the Dark Lord's chests. The reason it needs to be somebody cosplaying as a myth on a different base school is because of the boss Kameka. Kameka is one of the 4 priestesses that you must defeat in order to summon Hunhao in the raid, and Kameka casts a lot of chromatic weaknesses on everybody, and the best way to really fight Kameka is to just bypass the chromatic weaknesses by cosplaying Myth. For example, when I am the Diff 2, and I fight Kameka, Kameka will cast chromatic death weaknesses on me, so when I cast, say, my Fantastic Jin or my Ivan Storytime on Kameka, I don't need to worry about hitting through the weaknesses because it's a myth spell that's a death weakness. Just kind of go over what the spells that are in there are. First, you'll see there is Mass Myth Trap. This is typically going to be taken off the Headmaster's Dream Staff, although if you really want to, there are other avenues that you can get it. Secondly, main deck Myth Trap, you can just train this from Cyrus. Same with Spirit Trap, most people should have this. You get this from Niles and Rocketopia. Stone Colossus, it doesn't need to be like tier 5 Stone Colossus. It doesn't have to be tier 1 Stone Colossus, but any sort of half A Stone Colossus works. Can't use Path B Stone Colossus because Kameka will counter dots, and that won't end well for you. You need one Ivan story time. It is Death's 9 pip Trap Gambit spell, and then 2 fantastic Jins, Myth's 11 pip Shield Gambit spell. You also do need to have Torrance's Rage on your pet. Although, if somebody else is in the Hunhow fight that is not already one of the priests, the other priestess, Ishta, that has to kill Hunhow, if they have the talent on their pet, typically it would be Otlock or Gatasha, but most likely it's going to be Otlock. They could cast in your hand. If treasure card wise, you need 2 Spirit Shields. You will be casting those on yourself to set up your Gambit, and Empower for Kameka Strat 2 and H-Roll TC. This is typically just used as a backup when needed. If you would like, there are some scenarios where you can pack a Myth Trap TC that will be helpful, say if you do need to help set up cleanup or if a trap is missing. That does work. But this overall is what your deck setup's going to be, and your gear setup as well. It's nothing crazy complicated, and it's very simple. Back here with my gear, I'm going to kind of go over what I'm running, why I'm running it on my death. Obviously, if you are, say, a Sith or a Fyth, you will be running completely different gear. But the gear I run, and this is also just a note for death, you're not going to be able to hit, because of just how stat caps work, you're not hitting your Pierce. I'm sorry. Death gets 57 Pierce, I think it is, or maybe it's 55. You're not hitting your Pierce cap. So it's okay that you're going to be a bit under. You just will have to clean up occasionally on some of the higher health mods with it. But this setup does get me 197 myth damage, 63 universal resist. I have 6 extra just off of here I'm running. 33 myth accuracy. Crit doesn't matter. Block doesn't matter. 57 myth pierce. And 106 power pip chance. Pip conserve, shadow rating, everything else does not matter. It is only these 2 stats that. I also have the deck all set up. Don't need Button Tom. And again, I have my Stone Colossus. It is Path 5A. It can be Path 1 or Tier 1A. It doesn't matter. Ivan Story Time, Fantastic Jin, Myth Trap, Spirit Trap, and Mass Myth Trap. This spell, trained by Cyrus, these 3 you can Diego, and then the TC. Gear-wise, what I am running is a Wastelander's hat with your... Typically, with some exceptions, this is going to be the easiest way to maximize your stats. You're going to want, though, these pins that will give you both myth damage and pierce. They are myth punishing pins. You can craft these from Wallaroo Crafter, that you can, what's his name, Bingo or whatever, once you get the badge that allows you to craft the sword pins. And then also, I do run myth accuracy pins. You're going to need this if you want to hit your accuracy requirements. Likewise, I am running the Plot Armor Robe. You can get this from the Forbidden Library Gauntlet. Other things work too. You really just need 2 swords and a power pin. So you could run, if you have Burrower's Robe, you could run that. But if you have Daemon Robe, because you've been doing Cabal's Revenge, you can run that as well. You can run Reaver Robe if you have that. A lot of people have that. Can't run Hunhow though, but you can run a lot of these more easily. I also run the Reaver Boots. Again, two of my damage pierce pins and a accuracy pin. Doesn't have to be Reaver Boots. You can run, say, Burrower's Boots if you can still get the requirements. Although Reaver Boots are the ones that typically will help you get the most. If you do already have them, you can run the Shabalba Boots. Although you will need to switch some gear around to make up the fact that you're just losing a ton of power pip chance. This is probably the most important part of the setup. Trust me, spending the crowns on Professor's Horde packs to get the Headmaster's Dream Staff is going to be so worth it when it comes to actually setting up this role. The Mass Myth Trap is incredibly valuable. Don't worry about the Maycast, it's PvP beyond. The 26 myth damage to 7 myth pierce is just incredibly valuable along with that item card. Also, I'm running the Takanobu Theme. Technically, Reaver Theme works here as well, but I'm running it so I can run a 50% myth accuracy Cool. I also am pinned to Pierce because that's where you're going to need your most stuff, and you're already getting 50 fame. The film's Legend Necklace. This is from Omen. With health sockets. Doesn't have to be Omen. It can be any other mastery amulet, but it just needs to be a Myth mastery amulet. I also am running Reaver Ring. Sun Trap doesn't matter. I just have that for other things. But the Myth Pierce helps. The 12 damage, the 19 power pit chance. It does need to specifically be, though, something that gives you a circle, because that circle is going to be valuable. That's why you can't run something like Wastelander's Ring, even though it does give you that power pit. On the pet, I'm just running a double with Button Tom. This pet also has Mighty. You can run a triple Mighty damage Pierce pet. This is just what I have. It is incredibly helpful as well, just for getting your stat requirements done. And then on this setup for death, unfortunately, you need a Pierce mount. I'm running the Clockwork Courser. The Fox one does work as well. If somehow you can get 2 more Pierce without needing to sacrifice any of your stats, perhaps from the pet, but you find yourself low on Power Pip, Rock is perfectly fine, or if you need for accuracy, the Crystal Unicorn. On the deck, I'm running a Takanobu deck. The actual deck itself doesn't matter, as long as it has a circle socket. I have my Pierce socketed here, but it could be something more like your Reaver decks, or it can be a, anything really with a circle socket. Works fine. Remember, elixirs don't work within raids, but this is really the gear that I'm using. If you want to just pause and take a screenshot of the names of it all, I'll leave it up here for a second. Overall, this is the gear that you're going to be using for the raid for Div 2. If you're using a Fyth 2, you will likely probably be doing the same thing, using pins as well and having a dedicated pet. The same with Storm, Cosplay, Myth. Well, although there are some other options in the ring, like Fames and whatnot, where you could maybe run your primary school and the Myth School version of save some of that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a video of the Crying Sky raid and how we did it. And that way I can walk you and talk you through exactly what you're going to be in the raid as you go along. And I'll also include screenshots and whatnot from the guide, so that. Alright, so when you get into the Crying Sky raid, you will need to. You will be on the top of this kind of central pyramid. You can see on the top right corner. And on that pyramid, there will be these drums. There are going to be 12 of them, one for each person that will be inside of the raid. Once the raid begins, when everybody is on to the drums, all 12 people are on them and they're all flashing green. Walls will be let down. You can actually go. You'll see that here in a second when we start. When you first go to get onto the raid, as any part of Myth teams but Fyth 2, you will go into play as pet mode and go look at the. This is important because you need to be able to find what is called the pet token. The boss, the priestess Yatasha, needs to be spawned by getting the tokens for 3 prayer wheels, much like trying to get excuse me, much as when you're trying to open up streets and say the Voracious Void raid, or if you're trying to get the water unlocked dungeon. You would go north and go and find these pet tokens. And I'll get to the pet token and then your token fight in a second. But as you see in this match, or in this raid, the rain went to Rain Sky is a mechanic known as the Rain, in which one of the 4 quadrants of the map, north, east, south, and west, much akin to a compass, is going to be closed off by a rain, much like, say, the storm in Fortnite. During this time, if you are inside of the quadrant in which it is raining, you will be having your health and mana both not great. You will never want to be in the rain. No matter what you are doing, you are in the rain. You need to get out of there as quickly as possible. There's one exception, but that doesn't apply to roll. Because of this, we are going to do what we would normally do next within raid, and that is go fishing. Before I show you the actual location of the pond and how you would catch the fish, let's quickly go over what fishing in the Fishing is your fishing wisps. There are 4 of these vases that you see in the picture on the screen on the map. One is located at the base of each side of the center pyramid, northeast, south, west. Each of them requires one ice, storm, myth, death, and firefish to be deposited at the vase. That way, and once that happens, the vase will spawn health and mana wisps. These are incredibly important as before every fight in the raid, you want to make sure that you are at full health and at least roughly about 80 or so mana. That way, you can make sure that you can cast your cards. You're going to want even more mana, usually in the 150 100 range, if you're doing a fight that's actually in a quadrant, such as skull fights, token fights, anything like that. Because if you are in a fight, the rain will drain your mana, but not your health while you are in there. Fishing is incredibly important in this scenario. But there is one other thing that fishing is required to do, and that is the West Puzzle. The West Puzzle is the puzzle that you need to do in order to spawn the West Priestess Outlaw. Spawning Outlock requires 3 collectors to build. And it's not incredibly important how Outlock goes, so you're not going to be doing anything related to that fight. But what is important is 2 things. Fish Head Collector and the Cacao Pod Collector. One of your fish, and just one, it will be only one of your myth fish, needs to be deposited at the Fish Head Collector. Fish Head Collector is directly on the 2nd level of the pyramid, rather than the very bottom where the fish and wisps are. It will say Fish Head Collector on it. You need to deposit both the West Fish and Wisps and the West Fish Head Collector. Furthermore, you need to collect cacao pods. All over the west quadrant of the map, they will be just lying around all around. You can hold them one at a time, and you need to pick them up and deposit them at the cacao pod collector. This is very similar to how you collect Dreamwater in the Nightmare Dungeon, or perhaps Rope in Cabal's Revenge. And I don't actually know the actual number off the top of my head, once the Cacao Pod Collector is filled, you will be seeing a rainbow beach kind of teleport effect play. The Cacao Pod Collector will disappear, and that's when you know that you've collected all the pods. Myth Team, and you specifically as Fyth 2, will be responsible for depositing the Myth Fish in the Fish Head Collector, and then furthermore, going and collecting and depositing all of the Cacao Pods. Skull fights don't matter to you, so don't worry about the Crystal Skull Collector, but make sure that you're collecting the Cacao Pods and the fish heads. That way, Outlock can. When you do go west in order to do fishing and your Cacao Pods, first you need to make sure you don't hit these Wisps of Misfortune. They can do one of 3 things. They can either slow you down and half your speed, they can either take away half your mana, or they can send you to jail. You don't want to be going to jail. I'll show you jail later on in the video. Here, what I am showing you is how you get to the fishing pond. It's located here, kind of in back. And in here, you have basically only fish. There is a small 10% chance that death fish will spawn, but you typically will only hit myth fish. You will need to use myth fishing lures to lure the sentinel fish. The moment the sentinel fish bites the lure, you need to hit the spacebar or the button in order to collect the fish. Unlike normal fishing in Wiz, don't wait for the lure to go completely in the water. Now, typically, you're going to want to stand in the water. That way, if any wisps of misfortune are passing by you while you're fishing, you don't have to worry about being hit by them, because the wisps don't go into the water. Don't be like me here and stay on the shore. I was tempting a lot. But you need to collect 4 of them, and you'll deposit them in the North Fish and Wisps, West Fish and Wisps, East Fish and Wisps, and the Fish Head Collector for Outlock. You don't need to collect 4 yourself. You will collect 4 between you and the entirety of your team. As you saw, as I just collected the fish, I typed in chat MF2, standing for Myth Fish 2. Myth Fish because that's what I'm fishing for, and 2 because that's the second I caught. Suri here caught the 3rd myth fish, which means that we now have 3 myth fish between all of us, and we just need. Here I believe Suri catches the last one, and once that is done, yep, she does, you are done with your fishing, and you're free to deposit the fish and collect the cacao pods. First, don't go around collecting cacao pods and then before going back to the pyramid, unless you hit one on your way over there. What you are going to need to do is ensure that you pick up the cacao pods, maybe perhaps if you're running by them, but then immediately deposit the fish. That is your top priority, especially if you are doing things like if you need to deposit the fish in. As you see here in the raid, the rain immediately went to west after, so we made a beeline to get out of there and put on pause collecting pods. North needs to have its fishing wisps, not its fishing wisps, its fish deposited first before anything, because North is the first fight that's going to be receiving wisps. Fire team those Pasha. Since we weren't able to do our North stuff, the North pet token and the North token fight, we are now immediately going North before doing anything else. That way we can find the pet token and then do our token fight. Before I kind of show you the pathing that I typically take, though, when I go do the pet tokens, let me show you the map in on how it works. The North puzzle is one of the easier ones to do within Raid, as it's more akin to things like Street 2 in the Voracious Void Raid, which you may be familiar with. You need to find 3 tokens here. Excuse me. The first one is the pet token, and that's what we are going to find first. You have to be in play as pet mode, which means you need to make sure you have pet snacks to give your pet happiness. Fret not if you run out of happiness during the raid, though, as you can feed your pets more pet snacks to make them happier while actually in raid itself. Now, the pathing I normally take is to start here when you go into North, then you take a right and check back here, check here, and then make a long circle around the pyramid to go find all of them. This is on the top of the pyramid, this is in the back corner, and then you need to check the ravine here for pet token as well, so pet token can spawn there, and it will do that quite often. In this run, actually, that I'm showing you the video of, it took us forever to find the pet token because we forgot to check one of the spots, and we had a bit of miscommunication there. After that, you will be needing to do the North token fight. But you're doing the North token fight too, which ends up being right around here, and I'll point out where it is when we get to there. In that, you will have a strat, and it is an incredibly simple strat. You will first use your item card, Mass Smith Trap, pass on turn 2, Ivan's Storytime, turn 3. You must be the last person in the fight. In order for this to work, Myth Jade has to be second, and Fyth 1 has to be first. Turn order is incredibly important and cannot, in any circumstances, be switched around, otherwise the strat likely will not work. I'll show you the token fight once we get to that point. As you can see, I am currently running around looking for the pet token. Now, I'm not going to show you the entire of like the 5 to 10 minutes that it took us to find the damn pet token, but this is the general pathing that you are going to do. You also, as you can see there, will find mounds. When you're in pet mode, you can run up to those mounds and hit X on them. You can get a random cantrip. They're incredibly nice for getting more cantrips, as it will save you a little bit of Azoth in the long run. Now, here to the right, let me go back a teeny bit. And I just suck at using this. To the right, as you will see coming up ahead, there is that dinosaur that's on the plateau, kind of around here, where that Maple Moose just went. This is where your second token fight will take place at. It will not always be the Crying Sky Barbarian, it can be any minion that's present within the Crying Sky raid. That is where you will do your fight, and you typically will do that after you find the pet token. Now, you will continue running around. Make sure you avoid the wisps. They're incredibly annoying to navigate around, but it's even more annoying when you get hit by one. As you can see, I picked up the mound and got a Restoring Rain or RR1. And you basically just run around the area the entire time, looking for the token, or like me, almost getting hit by multiple wisps. This is one of the spots to check, and then likewise later on, and I will kind of get to that, we'll be going down to the ravine, and I'll show you. So this is how you get down to the ravine. Avoid that other fight. One of the storm teams will be doing the first North token fight. It's North token 1 guide. Don't get pulled into that fight; it would be incredibly bad. When you checking the ravine down here, you need to be cognizant of all the spots. The pet token can sometimes blend in with a wall. Again, there is a pet mound there, and just basically run around looking at pet token. Make sure you avoid the wisps. That X thing that you're seeing there doesn't really matter. You can magic touch them to open up portals, I believe. I don't actually really know what they do. Nobody really uses them, but they do exist. Then you will kind of go behind that fragment of the comet that hit Chibalba. And just go and generally run around looking at token. Kind of hovering and sitting there, and you need to run up to it. When you actually find the pet token, you don't need to run up to it and hit X like you do to pick up some other tokens in the game or other items. You just simply have to run into it, and it will collect itself automatically. Now, we have some more of us trying to run around and trying to find this damn pet token. I'm not going to bore you with all this. Here is the pet token when you actually find it. It's not the best of pictures, but there will be a symbol on it. You need to make sure before you run up and collect it that you make note of the symbol in chat. Pet token in this case is typically school. It will be the school token. It can be one of any of the 7 magic schools: Fire, Ice, Storm, Death, Myth, Life, or Balance. You simply just need to run up and collect it, but beforehand, type in chat North and then whenever the token symbol is. That way, one, it's known to be the North token and not to be, say, the South puzzle, but also so that you know what it is, because you have no way of knowing what the token was after you collect it unless you make it. This is incredibly important, as you can legitimately throw the run if you forget what the token said. Here is the fight with... Here is your North token fight. Again, it is up here at the pyramid, or the base of kind of this thing, where you run up and collect. I have the fight obviously going in double speed, so I don't bore you. But this is how the fight typically... It's a random minion, and you just basically set up life and story time in order to defeat said minion. It's going to be a 3-turn strat. It's kind of boring, but it generally is not the worst thing in the world. As you can see here, it uses snake turn combat order, just like raids and Beast Moon of this is just generally how the strat goes. It's going to be the same strat every time. Unlike some of the bosses in the raid, or all of the bosses in the raid, there is not a differing strat based off of the schools it has. You will always do exactly what it is, no matter what the minion at the end of the day ends up being. If it's one of the beefier minions, you will need your Myth Jade or your Fyth one to follow up with a Stone Colossus to ensure that you kill, if and only if really you are the Dith 2 instead of Fyth Sith. That's just because Death has garbage Pierce. But here is basically how the fight ends up going. You end up killing, you set up a trap gambit, and it should usually do around that much damage, depending on how much resist the boss. You will then take that. My bad when I said the pet token was a school. But you will, or wait, no, it is a school. This is the wildlife token. I'm just done. You will say North, whatever the token was, and then you will go and put that into chat. After this is done, you will then go on and basically sit around waiting. If cacao pots aren't collected yet, finished being collected yet, like they are here, you will run around and look for the cacao pots. They can be in many different spots on the map, but they're just scattered all over the west side of West Quadrant. And you run around, collect them. Now, as you can see here, there's that big Wisp of a Misfortune thing. If you find Tears of Misfortune also in the West Quadrant and deposit them at that altar thing that you saw there, you can get Misfortune to be managed for minutes, and the Wisps will disappear and turn into Wisps. The strat that we run here does not mandate this, although if you and your team and guild do end up wanting to do so, then it is perfect. As you see here, once again, we get a West Rain, quite annoying, and you will go on and kind of just stand. Normally, you would go and help with the South puzzle. I'll go over the South puzzle in a different video for different roles, because this doesn't really pertain to the Fyth 2. But since South is already done here, you kind of just stand around. Make sure all of your fish is deposited. One thing of note, as you saw that Jaguar was kind of past me, some of the mobs are moving. You need to make sure you don't stand in front of them and hold, as that is incredibly bad. If you get pulled into a fight that you're not intended to be in, that's going to cause a lot of headaches for everybody, and that's going to make the fight unnecessarily a lot harder. I will then cut to when we get to this point in time where we start Kameka. You will get your health and mana wisps from the east quadrant's fish in. West is usually for Potlock, north is for Gatasha, east is for Kameka. Now, while Kameka is the boss that the southern priest is, you do them at east because the wisps will actually stay there by the fishing wisp. Whatever reason, the one at south, they tend to filter away and run to the southern end of the raid. To the southern part of the raid, and then you just can't get your fishing wisps, and bad things start to happen. That's why you grab them so you can kind of just grab them really whenever, between your token fight and Kameka, as long as you're at full health when it starts. Kameka is one of the more annoying priestesses to fight, if not the most annoying within the raid, but it has been basically down to the science in the last year plus the raid has been. Kameka has two strats, and it's completely based off of whether the minion's life. You don't want it to be life. Kameka strat 1, which is not the strat that we are doing in this raid, we are doing strat 2, I believe, is quite easy. You don't actually have to end up using any of the treasure cards. You will first item card Mass Myth Trap to place a Myth Trap on both Kameka and the minion, Ivan Storytime Kameka, and then regular Spirit Trap minion. On strat 2, which is what we ended up getting, it is a bit more sketch. You will be using a lot of PCs, but you can discard all of your cards but your Jins. You will only need the 2 Spirit Shields and the Empowers in this sim. First, you will TC Spirit Shield yourself, then you will Jin Kameka. You will then shield yourself again, pass, Empower, and then Jin the minion in order to help the minion. This is important, and yes, this is going to be an annoying fight, but this is what you have to do in the scenario that you do end up getting a minion. What is incredibly important here is 2 things. First, this doesn't pertain to the Fyth 2, but this is helpful to know. Myth Jade has to pull Kameka. If the Myth Jade pulls the minion, then things start getting messed up, especially with cycles. The other thing of note is if something goes wrong, the Fyth 2 in this scenario, especially if you have the Torrent's Willcast pet, has to be the one to kill Kameka. Whoever lands the final blow on Kameka ends up being able to polymorph into Kameka for the Hunhao fight. The 4 people that defeat the actual bosses themselves in the fight, in order to spawn and then do Hunhao, need to polymorph into the priestess they killed, stand on these big drums at the top of the pyramid that will show you later on, and then, and only then, are you able to fight. Here, though, this is what you're going to be. Make sure that if something ends up getting scuffed in or going wrong, Fyth 2 is the one that ends up killing Kameka, but this, if everything goes right, which, to be frank, it normally does, this is what you will. In order to start Kameka, the Myth Jade needs to kind of run into the center and then cast a Reveal Invisible cantrip in order to reveal the drum. They will then need to back up, hit X on the drum, and quickly run away in order to spawn Kameka and not get pulled, so you can tell what strat it is. No matter what, you as the Fyth 2 sending a Donate Power 2 cantrip into the fight, as I did there. You'll be doing this regardless of whether or not it is strat 1 or strat 2. As you see here in the fight, you will be getting a lot of these bonuses and whatnot, and chromatics. They're really fun. And this is how the fight ends up going. You get the donate powers, and then it's just, frankly, quite a lot of shield spamming. Kameka Strat 2 is, however, the most PC and cantrip intensives of the Kameka strats. As you see here, the fight is going on. I'll kind of just leave it so that you can kind of watch and see how the bosses work, how the cheats work, and what everybody else is doing. so you can best kind of understand how the raid. One thing I will note is that if it is Kameka Strat 2, if you do send in a bunch of donate powers, you can cut down the amounts of turns. However, you just need somebody that's willing to send 3 DP2s or DP3s into the fight so that you can actually do this. This will cut down 2 turns off of Kameka as you don't have to spend all the turns, basically just regain. You do that here, but you don't have to do that. If you follow the strat as directed to, you will be fine. This just saves everybody time and a little bit of sanity. As you see, there are a lot of donate power cantrips being a fight. Now, both you and the fifth one will be committing here. As you see, the fifth one doesn't kill Kameka completely. That is why you, as the fifth two, are the one that is doing the hit onto Kameka and then eventually killing them. Now you have the minion. You will shield yourself again. As you can see, we have 3 donate power cantrips. This is all just to speed the fight up a little. It is by no means required. The cantrips, if you are curious, are 2 donate power 2s and a single donate power. Again, they're not required for the fight. They just tend to speed it up a bit because you get to skip the hip gaining. And then here, because we are able to kind of skip all these pip gaining turns, you will be able to cast Jin in order to kill the Myth Jade will be casting Betrayal to get rid of the shields, that way the Elephant actually does something, and except in this case when the minion tower shields, and it ends up being incredibly annoying. Now, in this scenario, because of the tower shield the minion casted, we did not kill it. In this scenario, you just back up. That is what your troll is for. Myth Jade also has this Stone Colossus, although it might not kill because the Myth Jade isn't obviously causing myth. However, typically, you will be able just through TC backup hits that you and your teammates should be carrying, will be able to kill the minion without much difficulty. As you see, there is that giant pillar. You need to run up to it and hit X on it in order to polymorph yourself into Kameka. You, as the fifth two, have to be Kameka in this situation. Once you stand on these giant drums here, you go into the Hun Hao fight. Now, what makes the Hun Hao fight unique is that if you are going first, you will send a donate power 2, because you will have the ability to will cast torrents into your hand during the first turn. The donate power 2 then lets you cast the 9-pip torrents on turn. This is an incredibly much easier way to do Hun Hao, and it doesn't risk as much the chance of a throw because of a cheat. I'll go over the actual strat of Hun Hao in a second, but I'll kind of talk you through it now. Because I do not have torrents on my pet, the person who is locked in this scenario does. They are will casting it. What the other dinosaur polymorphs are doing is not as important. What's important is what you are doing as somebody who ends up hitting. You won't ever. This is me forgetting how the strat worked for a second. You are not to use any pips whatsoever. If you use a pip, things go wrong because you won't have the pips in order to actually cast your Rain of Torrents on the turn that you need to do so. That is why you are only to either pass or use 0 pip healing effect counters such as potentially Cleanse Charm, Cleanse Ward, Pierce on Hun Hao to just prevent him from having a lot of hanging effects to use cheats off of. As you see in the Hun Hao fight, a lot of cantrips are being sent. One of pretty much every dual strike is being sent, on with a Restoring Rain 2, followed by 2 Restoring Rain 1s. This gives you a 25% blade for your Rain of Torrents, while also giving you more the blades to cover it. That way you meet the condition on your Gambit. You only need to cast a Donate Power 2 if you are going first, but just about every other role in the Crying Sky Raid that is not a dinosaur polymorph will be sending cantrips into the Hun Hao fight in order to help speed things along and make the fight actually possible. As you see here, the torrences are going on. The first torrents will typically do a ton of damage. The second torrents will do less because the first torrents is benefited by an element. You are not to be hitting Hun Hao until there is at least one elemental trap on him. That way you can ensure that you kill him. The elemental traps, however, are not your responsibility. They are the responsibility of either Yatasha or Otlock, the first two people in the fight. And then, as you see, that kills Hun Hao in the raid. In this, you will be getting a ton of drops and whatnot that are incredibly beneficial and are used a lot for things such as PvP or for other advanced combat. This is just to really make it easier to use shadow spells or to better hit traps. Overall, though, that is what the Div 2. Here is the Hun Hao strat. You are the Fyth 2. You will be going last. If you guys are first, as you can see, it will send a Donate Power 2. As you can see, you are only to use 0 pip spells your first 2 turns, or if you're going first, your first turn followed by the torrents on the third turn. Remember, you must discard a card before you will cast a spell on yourself, otherwise you won't get it. There is also, if you're curious, a list of all of the cantrips that will be sent by other people in. You don't need to worry about these because you are obviously potentially sending in a cantrip yourself. You're also actually in the fight, so it's important that you get into the fight before cantrip is sent, especially because the dual strikes need to be sent the turn immediately preceding you hitting, because Hun Hao can use Empower on himself, which will take away the traps and basically end up run. However, if Hun Hao does use Empower the turn you hit, as long as one of the torrents has all of the traps from dual strikes, you will be able to kill unless something goes catastrophically wrong, when you typically need to end scuffing it. Once the raid is over, you can shift home, refill your health and mana, and get ready for the next run. In all, you're going to want about 60 to 65 energy before you do the raid. You can't buy an energy elixir while in it, but you can buy one in runs. I would encourage you to do so. You will need about 60 energy because you have the potential of using 24 twice on one for your DP2 on Kameka that you'll always cast, and then another 24 in case you are first on Hun Hao. You're also going to want some in case you need to let a teammate out of jail or for other assorted purposes where you may need to cast a cantrip. That's why I typically recommend about 60 to 65 energy per time. Now, one quick last thing about the guide and the raid itself. I've mentioned jail a few times. And jail is where you go if you're hit by a wisp or if you end up dying in the run, whether it's by rain or you get killed by a mob boss. Jail is very simple. You get stuck behind a raid gate, a lot like, as you see in the picture, the ones before you hit on the drums at the very beginning of the raid. In order to unlock jail, 2 people on the outside must magic touch these pillars in order for, and once those 2 pillars are activated, along with 1 pillar on the inside in the center, the wall will go down and people are able to get out. Must unlock these at the same time. There's about a 3 to 5 second window which you need to magic touch them for the jail wall to be down. Because of this, you have to be coordinated on when you actually magic touch these pillars to let people out of jail. In all, that is the Crying Sky raid for the If2 role in Wizard101. As always, thank you so much for watching the video, and I hope that this helped you better understand both how kind of the raid may work, and then also if you are the Fyth 2 in the raid, what exactly you will be doing step by step. In the description below, I will put the raid guide along with a helpful interactive map that will kind of allow you to scope out what the raid will look like beforehand. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to comment them down below, and I'll do my best to answer them in a manner. Or you can join the Discord server, where I have helpful guides and whatnot posted in there, such as guides on how to use cantrips and level them, jewel socketing, mounts, and whatnot. As always, once again, thank you all so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more content. I hope to try and get out, especially as I do the roles, how each role will work within the raid, in the 3 different raids, and then overviews of the raids themselves as a whole. Once again, thank you all for watching, and have a great, wonderful rest of your day.